Hello, my friends, and I hope you can hear us, and I hope you can see our amazing guest. And today we're speaking about Ukraine. Today we're going to watch the premiere, and I want to introduce you to our amazing guest. So, my first guest is John Fuggles. He's humanitarian. He knows how to help Ukraine. He's been helping Ukraine from the day one, and I'm incredibly grateful that he still keep doing that. And he's sending ambulances to Ukraine and helping Ukrainian people to survive very difficult times for them. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you for having me.
And my second guest is John Sweeney. He's legendary journalist. Everybody knows him, so far as I know. And he written many books, and one of them, Killer in the Kremlin. And he been in Ukraine from the day one of the active phase of war in Ukraine. And he was talking about this, filming the stories about that, and basically have his understanding of the situation firsthand. And in the middle of today's lively meeting, I hope we're not only going to talk about the problems, we also going to watch the movie. This is my first movie where both of these gentlemen take part, and this is a lovely movie where you will understand how you can help Ukraine, how these people help Ukraine, and how you can do it basically without leaving your house. So that's an option for you to join Heroes Mission, and I hope you will be inspired by these gentlemen and many other people who help Ukraine today. So, gentlemen, are you ready for conversation?
I am.
I feel decidedly underdressed. I don't have a hat, but there we are.
So, my first question basically, I think I would like us to address a controversy a little bit because many people ask me, they say, well, you live in Kyiv, so can you get back there? Because it looks like it's really safe right now. Everything what happening somewhere on the east, nothing is happening. So I would like to hear your perspective on how safe Ukraine is right now.
Which John first?
John Fuggles. We start with John Fuggles, so he will be first.
Sure, for sure. So, I think when we get to eastern Ukraine, Kiev, and certainly nearer the border, Mr. Sweeney is your man to answer that. He spends a lot more time there than I do. Um, but I guess there's two things I can think of to answer that. I've been across the border many times. We, as a group, and well, perhaps we'll come on to this later, have been across the border many times. Um, we tend to sort of stay in the west of the country, which is where we hand over to our team. But again, that's perhaps more for later. So my exposure is relatively limited. But other than a lot of military, other than curfews, you could be in any country at any time of the year. It doesn't appear to be particularly dangerous or difficult to navigate. There are curfews and etc. So you have to be mindful. But it's a big country, and yes, there are. It's been bombed and missiled every single day, but it's a big country. Um, the other thing is really interesting. There's been a lot of talk lately coming out of Kiev, but also across Europe and beyond about people returning to Ukraine. An awful lot of people are fighting, and an awful lot of people are supporting that that process. Now, several million people have left. That creates a vacuum in the ability to look after the electricity supply, to do the sort of general maintenance that's required, to drive the factories that are going to drive industry, but even to pay taxes to keep the country afloat. So there's a real need purely on an operational basis for people to return. Now, the West has been very good at opening their arms to encourage people to leave when it was safe, but now that it's when it wasn't safe, but now that it's deemed marginally safer, considerably safer, or somewhere between there and there, um, there's a real argument to say, we should be encouraging people to go home. Now, that's going to sound very negative. It sounds like we're wanting people to leave. It's not that at all. I just think it's as a country as a whole, they need more help in terms of keeping the country going. And I think that's the lens you should look at it through. Whether people should go back or not is what is the need, what is the drive. Um, as well as safety. It's not just about safety. And John, you've been much closer to the front line than I have, for sure.
Well, yes, but everybody should know that early December, I was delivering crutches in Kyiv, and I delivered crutches with our great mutual friend Major James Hewitt, and I fell over on black ice and I tore my knee ligaments, my knee tendon, and annoyingly, I'm recovering, but I've had a re-tear, and I've got to do a fresh bout of surgery here in London, and hopefully I can go around kicking Vladimir Putin in the late spring, early summer. But there's a real problem in that I completely agree with you, John, about it's very important for like, if too many people leave Ukraine, then Ukraine, the part of the mass of people to stand up to the Russian killing machine. That's a problem. At the same time, the latest word militarily is bleak. So what's happening is that there really has been a catastrophic failure of the West, us, to supply the Ukrainians with artillery shells.
Mm-hmm.
And while North Korea, for example, has given 1 million shells to Russia, Europe has not managed to give something like a third of that. It said it would give 1 million, and it's not even delivering a third of that. There's a real problem. There's a separate problem I think we all know about, which is that the MAGA Republicans, led by the Russian asset Donald Trump, are they're saying. By the way, it says a note. Please refresh YouTube. It says we're still waiting to start. I hope we're all doing that. But there's a problem with Trump, and it means that this military aid, which is desperate at the moment, is blocked.
Mm.
And so I spoke to Paul Conroy, or rather, I texted him this morning, and he is a great friend of mine. Was the photographer who was working for the Sunday Times with Marie Colvin when she was killed in Syria, and his escape was amazing, but he made it out, and he's now in Kherson. And he says the word is that the Russians fire 10 shells for every shell of the Ukrainians. Now, the problem with this is there is a possibility that that Ukraine is going to start losing ground.
Well, it has. I mean, we hear a lot recently about Advika. There's been a change of general at the top, and that arguably is driven by a change of strategy. But on the flip side, Russian jets are falling out of the sky. So there's an interesting dynamic of we see the outcomes. We hear about the jets. We hear about Advika. There's two ends of the equation. But there's a lot going on in between that we're not privy to in terms of the strategy, I think.
Yes, but I've also, it's not just Paul. There's a friend of mine who's just come back from a tour of the front line, and he said it was really grim the whole way from the northeastern Kupiansk down to Robotynia, and it's all bleak. Yeah. And I spoke to, or was texting, my great friend Vlad Demchenko. Now, for people who don't know the story, which I tell in my book "Killer in the Kremlin," Vlad arrested me for being a Russian spy on day 2 of the big war, and we were both kind of pissed off because the Russians were 12 miles away and closer, and anyway. He was angry because I didn't know, but I was filming myself, and my camera was going backwards towards me, but actually it looked as though I was filming that way. And that way, behind the shrubbery, I couldn't see it, was Ukrainian air defense position, which he was protecting. And he was angry, and there was this wanker wandering around in a silly orange hat. And he came out and he said, stop filming. And I stopped filming, walked on for 100 yards, popped up again. And then he came out of the bushes. I told you to stop filming. Give me your passport. And he didn't have a proper uniform. And I just said, you're not a policeman. And he almost killed me there and then. Anyway, we become great friends. He got me to Bakhmut 5 times in 22. I went there twice on my own. And we're real pals. But he was texting me to say, it's really, really bad. It's really, really bad. In a way, and by the way, he's an incredibly ballsy guy. During COVID, he hitchhiked to Zambia. So this isn't a scaredy.
He's no wimp, is what you're trying to say.
Sorry?
He's no wimp.
Not a wimp at all. So it is desperate. So I'm concerned. And by the way, on the geopolitical level, Macron is signaling we will send French troops to at least Kyiv, not to the front line, and this is outside the NATO thing, to make the point that the Russians can't, but there is more anxiety that people I know who are right at the front than I've ever heard before.
Yeah,
I'm worried.
And we hear all the time about the meat grinder that is the Russian way of war. The simple philosophy of Russian war is you will run out of bodies before we will, and we're seeing that played out now, and that goes back hundreds of years. But the reality is they're not getting enough rockets and shells and so on and so forth. But I do think and I'm not a supporter of, let's just say, what's going on in politics in the US at the moment, because it's not just one man, right? There's a few others. I do think Europe, is now waking up to the fact that it should be more independent, and I don't necessarily mean, form a European sort of defense organization or something. Maybe that will happen, but just in production of capability. If you look at all of our air forces, most of them American jets. Yes, the French are very good at building warships, but most of it comes from the US, and maybe there's a wake-up call there that we need to be more independent. That's a whole bigger question.
But we do. But the prospect, if Trump gets into the White House, then Ukraine is in trouble. But everybody in Europe and Britain, for my money, in Europe too, is in trouble as well. By the way, as a Brit, I'm slightly in favour of Canada taking over the whole shooting match. But let's not go there.
Well, the last time the Canadians went to the White House, they did a decent job. But let's just put that to one side and apologise to any of my American friends.
I know there's at least one. We burnt it down.
But back to your question, Eve, about whether people should return home. There is a demand in Kyiv for people to return home to keep the economy going, to grow their capability to defend their country. But when the last time I was in Lviv, I was with my colleague Mark, and we were in a restaurant, and people were being very friendly and chatty, and wanted to know what the Brits were doing there, and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying people were out, partying and raving all night long, but people were trying to carry on as best they can. And when you talk to people about that, it's kind of interesting. They say if they all run away, if they all hide, if they all stop living a relatively normal life, to quote one person, then Putin wins. The reality is, I'm not saying life has to carry on. To a degree, yes, but as a country standing up to an invading horde, they're demonstrating their strength by saying, no, we're not leaving, we're staying here. We are still going to sort of enjoy what we can, knowing that everyone in Ukraine has lost a family member or a friend, without exception.
And I'm reminded, listen, I'm old, but I'm not that old, that what I read about the Second World War was that everybody, for example, I mean, I would, if there's a moment I couldn't have been alive, a different moment, I would have liked to have been 20 or 21 in Soho in 1940. And all everybody wanted to do was go dancing and drink beer and listen to jazz.
Yep.
By the way, listen to jazz is a it's a phrase with a lot of hidden meaning. Perhaps you can work it out, folks. But the idea that we've also, Britain in 1940 had to fight the monster, had to fight Adolf Hitler, had to fight the Nazis. And so you get the same flavor when you hang out in Lviv or Dnipro or in Kyiv or in Kharkiv and all the whole across the whole country. A sense of all everybody wants to do is drink beer and have fun and listen to music, go dancing, and they have to fight the monster. But the idea, I think it's right, the idea that the only thing you can do is fight the monster, fight the monster, fight the monster. That's not what a wonderful open democracy like Ukraine is about. It's not what Britain was about in 1940. So you have to get some kind of strange balance. And it's strange and it's difficult, but it's a balance between really standing up to the Russian killing machine and at the same time remembering why we're doing this, why the Ukrainians are doing this. It's because they believe in a society full of fun and joy and mockery and celebrating the life while it's on the edge.
There's a bit in your film recently that I remember. There was a small village, and they were planting flowers, and around them was just absolute destruction. There were buildings torn apart. There was this beautiful old tree. I remember these people talking about this old tree. It'd been there for hundreds of years, and it was just a charred stump that was left. But there were people out there planting flowers to make fundamentally what looked like a road full of rubble pretty again. And I remember that because it doesn't matter how bad things are. You can just do something just to make it a bit better. And I think there's an element of that in people's psyche, which is it's pretty tough. It's pretty rubbish, and it's not currently going well. But, you know, there is still an opportunity to be with friends, be with people, and be a decent person, right?
Yes. So to explain, the film is called, it's available, for example, on Amazon Prime, and it's called Under Deadly Skies. It was called The Eastern Front. It's now called Under Deadly Skies. And there's a moment at the very end where there's a lady very close to the front line, and she bemoans the fact that to make firewood, because Russian artillery is so terrifying, you don't wander far. But what they've done is they've cut down all the little trees, all the small trees in the courtyard, and she's known them since she was a young, a teenager, when she was 16, 17 in the 70s, lived with them her whole life, and then to make firewood, because there's no electricity, her and her friends have cut them down. And then she was planting little seedlings, and it's a beautiful moment. And so Ukraine is doing this. Eve, we should show the movie.
We had a little technical issues because we're streaming ultimately in a different direction, but we are streaming, and it is a good thing. So as long as we're sharing the links, we have more people watching us right now. And also our third contributor will join us after the film because he has family issues. So unfortunately, he can't join us. I mean, he's with us, but quietly in the room. So he will join us later. And right now, I'm going to show you the film, which John Sweeney ultimately saw and gave some critics. So I make some changes. So it's all done. And John Fuggles will see it for the first time. And I hope both of you will enjoy it. This film is about these beautiful gentlemen and interesting activity which ultimately Help for Ukraine charity does, because what they do from the first day of the war, they're delivering ambulances to Ukraine. And I decided to share the story, how this all started, how this happening, how people from Britain decided to help a country which is so far away from them from the day one, what motivated them, and why they're a great example. So, gentlemen, enjoy the film, I guess.
When the rockets fly towards Kyiv, the air raid sirens sound. It's incredibly loud. It's so scary. And they call it Putin's Lullaby. It's hard to convey just how deep the agony of Ukraine is. It's not a TV show. You can't channel hop if the Russian killing machine is out to get you. But I know what it's like. I've actually seen Ukrainian soldiers fighting the Russian army. I've been at the front line. I went to Bakhmut. Listen to this. Take note.
Since the war started, I've been on numerous occasions to Ukraine. My mother-in-law is from Ukraine, and I sat and I watched her getting very upset. So I just got angry and decided to do something about it.
The war in Ukraine affected me personally because I have a family in Ukraine. My wife is from Ukraine.
At the start of the big war in February 22, I went to the children's hospital in Kyiv, and they took me down into a basement where there was kind of rubbish and pipes. And I turned a corner, and then there was a bunch of kids whose faces were yellow. And these children were on dialysis machines. The Russian army was 12 miles away. If they left their dialysis machines, they would die. If they stayed in Kyiv and if the Russians got to them, they would die. So the needs of the Ukrainian people right now are vast. They need a ton of things, but one of the things they absolutely do need are ambulances and medicines for hospital and the kind of stuff that we take for granted in the West.
Help for Ukraine is a UK-based humanitarian organisation. We deliver medical aid and equipment, we deliver ambulances to Ukraine. When we take an ambulance from the UK to deliver it to where it's needed, we call it a mission. So the process is actually not that difficult. It is raising some money, buying an ambulance, filling it up, and then making sure it actually gets to where it's needed, and that is actually quite important as well.
I do remember my very first mission to Ukraine. It was right after the war started, and our volunteer group obviously started to collect humanitarian aid, everything we can find. And so one of the members of this group had an absolutely brilliant idea to purchase a used ambulance and send it to Ukraine. And essentially this is how this mission started.
The Russians have targeted hospitals, and so there is a real need for ambulances. Ambulances for the front line to take soldiers back to the stabilization clinics, the MASH clinics I would call them, the field hospitals, but also ambulances for ordinary civilians. This need continues.
In order to make sure that all the aid and the equipment gets through, we have to do a number of things. So we have a full manifest before we leave. We know exactly what is in each vehicle. We know who it's going to. And when I say who, we know the name of the individual at the hospital, and there'll be a senior ranking individual at the hospital. We then know where it's going to. We hand over to a team we have based in Lviv. We then do another manifest check, and then it's delivered to the hospital, and the hospital then confirms back what has been received. All of this is done in formal processes with various documents signed off. So I can tell you that every single thing that goes in the back of the ambulance get to the hospital where it was intended for. We hand over in Lviv, which is way over on the west, so we're nowhere near the front line. But I've still been in Lviv when it's been bombed. So it's quite a sobering experience, knowing that you're that far away from the front line and things can still happen. Fundamentally, the stuff that we do here, the stuff that the team based in the UK does, is the easy bit. The difficult stuff is the people that are based in Lviv, whose job it is then to do the last leg of the journey. They're the people that really deserve recognition.
On Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I had a call from coordinator of this group, and they asked if I can drive. So, when would you like me to drive? Well, we're actually sending an ambulance today. Are you free? Yeah, I'm free. I personally took part in 8 missions so far. I probably helped to organize probably another half a dozen of them.
So a mission is very simple. We leave my house very early on a Saturday morning. We drive non-stop for 24 hours. We get to Lviv, or maybe we're held up at the border and it takes longer. Then we hand over to the team there. I have left my house at 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning and been back in the office on Monday. The other challenge is raising funds. Financially, people are more constrained. There's also an element of fatigue. We all get fed up of the same news all the time, so it's not as high profile. It's those two things. One is purely operational, and the other is really fundraising in the UK.
So we have different issues. Sometimes we have issues with cars break down, or we have some longer queues at the border, and sometimes we miss the connections.
If you help Ukraine in any little way, you can actually go there and help, or you can just sit in Britain and send some money, send some aid, send some medicine, send money for ambulances. Just that little bit. You'll know when it mattered, when Ukraine was really in trouble. You did something.
John and Mark are the heroes who actually drive the ambulances out and lead teams, and they're the kind of the guys on the front line. What am I? I am the person in the background, but I go around making speeches, and I help out at fundraising events, and I do what I can to keep everyone going.
When we started, fundraising was very much driven by Nick Munson. So that for us is how we drive most of our revenues. But we take sponsors, we take donors, we also work with corporates. So we have companies come to us and say they want to run their own mission. They want to deliver ambulances under their branding, their part of their corporate social responsibility. So we help them do that. I don't care whether an ambulance is delivered with my sticker on the side or a company sticker on the side. I don't care, as long as I can deliver an ambulance. On the website you can look at how to get involved, whether that's donating, whether that's buying your own mission, whether you want to be a driver, whether you want to get involved in other ways, whether you want to help with fundraising and support. The other thing on the website is all of the information about previous missions that we've done, and to see where the ambulance is and all the equipment has been sent.
I believe that we should defend Ukraine and we should help Ukraine. Some people are wary of giving Ukraine military help. Okay, we'll give them ambulances and give them stretchers and give them medicines, so at least they can look after their injured people. What's wrong with that?
I wish this war stops immediately.
When the war is over, the country is going to need rebuilding. Hospitals are going to need to be built. So we will continue to do this for as long as it's needed. So Help for Ukraine, delivering ambulances and medical aid to Ukraine is not my day job. But I'm really pleased that I work with the amazing team in the UK to do what we do.
Ukraine reminds me of Britain in 1939, of a country being bullied by a much more powerful neighbour, and at the same time, Britain then, Ukraine now, is fighting fighting truth and justice and what George Orwell called common human decency. I want Ukraine to win.
Hello, guys.
Very good. Very, very moving, actually.
It's the first time I've seen that. Thank you for sharing.
How did you like it, John?
Well, that's a bit. I'm not sure how to answer that question. It's a
Yes.
story well told. I think. It's a story.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was
of
looking
course
for
I
that
liked
answer. Thank you.
it. Yes, of course I liked it, but that's a bit churlish because I'm in it. It's a story well told. So thank you. I actually, to you and your team, for making it happen, for investing the time and the effort it took to make that film. I very, very much appreciate it. And John, what can I say? There's a reason why you do this for a living and I don't. Let's just leave it like that, shall we?
Yeah. I remember the interesting moment when John Fuggles messaged me and said, like, okay, I have a friend and he's going to actually be in that movie and he's professional journalism. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I need for my first movie. Be intimidated, like, oh my God.
Because I'm a professional journalist, I'm allowed to do it. No, it's, I mean, I've forgotten, so everybody understands. I fell over, I wasn't in the war zone or anything. I fell over on black ice on the way to the pub. And that's the reason I'm still on crutches. But when I said that stuff about Britain in 1940, Ukraine now, it feels exactly right. It feels exactly right. And I also feel to Mr. Monson and the money, the people who donate. I mean, thank you, because it really matters. And in particular, we're now fighting Ukraine fatigue, and we've got to. I mean, the war hasn't stopped. The problem is that Putin will continue to do this thing, even if we're bored with it. And just because we're not interested in Vladimir Putin does not mean that Vladimir Putin is not interested in you. Donate to help for Ukraine. All you have to do is hit that thing. What's it called?
They just need to use this QR code or the link is somewhere in the description.
QR code, that's right. Wait, hit the QR code and off you go. Help for Ukraine.
Yeah. Help for Ukraine.charity, 4 is a number, .charity. And you will see everything about missions. You will know how to donate. You will know how to participate the mission if you like to drive something, ambulance from Britain to Ukraine. Want to be a hero?
Yeah,
Check it out.
It's a straight road. It's not difficult, But John, you talked about fatigue, and you're absolutely right. We have people who still want to help. We have people who donate reasonable sums. We have people who just donate, 20 quid. We have a Just Giving page, So we're trying to sort of recognise that not everyone can donate, a lot of money. Some people just struggle. We have a team of volunteer helpers, but they're never the same people. They're never the same team, and it's not because they don't want to help. It's we have so many people come and sort of say, "Can I help load an ambulance?" And I say, "Yeah, 8 o'clock on a Friday night, we're loading an ambulance or something. Come and help." And we do. People just turn up and help. So there are a lot of ways you can get involved, but the reality is, everything begins with funding, right? We don't get the ambulances given to us. We have to buy them. These are second-hand ambulances. Yes, they've been used, and we then get them. I have to say thank you to a friend of mine, who owns a garage. He services them and MOTs them and does all that kind of stuff for free. But we've still got to buy the thing in the first place. Now, we have lots of donors and we work with lots of groups, so we can pretty much fill them up for free. And then there's a cost of driving them there. and then we have to fly the team home. Nobody gets paid for this. Everything is free. The nearest you get to any sort of reward is the fact I'll buy you a cup of coffee when we stop for fuel. Genuinely, it is absolutely pared down to the bone in terms of finances. But we still need to buy vehicles, and they're a lot cheaper than they used to be. But we're still donating, ambulances to Ukraine. So, and we've got more going out this month. I was going to say next month. It's March now.
You know what I really like about this mission, this is what many people don't understand, is that when we were working on your website, basically you said, I want the payment will be without any commission.
Yeah.
Because we don't spend any money at all. And
Correct.
I heard it from many people because I say like, okay, occasionally I work with these guys all the time, obviously for free, creating films, creating something like, again, not being paid. And they're like, oh, you have to push them because charity is earning a lot of money, and they definitely can pay you. And I'm like, look, this is probably one people in the world.
Yeah.
Completely for free, taking all the money and send it for the cause. And that's the difference.
It's true. Even our payment processor doesn't charge. Our bank doesn't charge. You build our website. Thank you very much. And I think I bought you a cup of coffee as a thank you. There's an awful lot of people doing an awful lot of stuff, and that's the reality of an organisation like Help for Ukraine. It's a lot of people that make it happen.
But you don't take money to yourself. It's important part for people to know and inform them that everybody participating freely on their own will. It's not an organization which is earning money through charity. That's important to know.
Yeah, correct. And even our accountant,
I paid for it myself.
Even our accountant is for free. Now, not many accountants would do anything for free. So
Okay, let's hear it from the accountant.
but yeah, I mean, the reality is we've got 6 more vehicles going in March. If we can make it more, we will. If not, we'll do another mission in May. But we've got 6 more vehicles going in March. And we'll keep doing it. It's really as simple as that. We don't. The Ukrainian people don't have any choice. I kind of argue, therefore, we don't have any choice, really.
Yeah, and I like that anybody can participate it also, because many people, especially from the beginning of the war, I was highlighting things all around. I was writing things. I could do what I can do, like many other people, right? So journalists, social media experts. And many people come to me, they say like, I want to help Ukraine, but I don't know how. And this is the way. This is the simplest way. Scan the code, donate, and you will help people who genuinely helping without earning money on that. So this is just no brainer.
And we record everything we do. You saw the videos, we live stream, so if you've donated money and it's gone to an ambulance, I can tell you which hospital that went to. Every ambulance, I can tell you which hospital. So if you donated money, you can see where your money's going. The other thing is, it's not just about donating money. Most people work for an organization. Some of them are quite large. We did a mission a while ago now for a company. They said, we want to take 2 ambulances and we're going to provide the drivers. And we bought the vehicles for them. We did all the paperwork. We got all the clearances. We did everything. We even arranged what needed to go in the back of it. We arranged for the ambulances to be delivered to their business in West London. And then the 2 lorries that arrived with all the stuff that was going in the back of the ambulance was also delivered to their offices in West London. And all of the staff came out and loaded the ambulance. And then 4 of the directors of the company then drove off. We can do that for any company. You don't have to be an enormous, great company. It'd be nice if you did, because you might buy more. But small companies can do their own mission. I think we talked about that on the film. So it isn't just about you can donate. It's about talk to your company, see what they can do as well. It's
important to point out that all 4 directors, we counted them out and then we counted them back. They're all alive.
They are.
Yeah. So the thing is, I mean, what did you do in the war to help Ukraine defend itself against evil Russian fascism?
Yeah.
And that matters. And I think if you can, you should help.
Yeah. So I want to invite our 3rd speaker as well, just briefly. Hi, Chris. Hello. We barely can see Chris because he's in cybersecurity, and that's why he's not visible. He's hiding. Hi, Chris. Can we hear from you?
I'm sorry. I'll try and get some more light on the subject. I've got my hat on though for John, so so there you go.
If you put your hat round the other way, then we can see your faces.
So that's better. So I want to say thank you to Chris as well, because from the day one we had conversations about Chris was helping IT guys to find the job and to find understanding how UK can work together with Ukraine from the day one. And it's another gentleman from Britain who I can very be grateful, because we had discussions when he said, like, we will fight with Russians until Ukraine win. So this is a very different perspective, very military perspective, while, previously we were talking about humanitarian aspects. So just to have this part of the conversation also from the perspective of the military aspects, how do you think people now can help Ukraine, Chris? What is your perspective on that?
Well, can you hear me okay? Just to check, Eve. Yeah.
More or less.
Yep. Okay. So I mean, obviously, as you've said, Eve, what I decided to do, John was saying, what did you do to help? What I decided to do was basically to help Ukrainian cybersecurity and tech companies, right, to keep doing business, right. That's basically what I decided to do. And as you know, Eve, and I'm sure the other gentlemen do as well, the tech sector, the Ukraine tech sector, is absolutely booming. I'm, delighted to say, and of course they are pioneering in many areas. So one of the things that I wanted to do very early on was, obviously, at the end of the day here, the Ukrainians are on the cyber front line as well as the physical front line, right? So I basically wanted to interview. I started off wanting to interview, if you like, some, let's call them CISOs, right? Some cybersecurity people, if you like, that are working for Ukrainian companies and organizations, and if you like, and get their knowledge back into the UK, right? So let people know, if you like, what the lessons have been. Actually, not since 2014, actually. So the first person that I spoke to, Mikhailo Koltsov, he is basically the CISO at U-Control. I don't know if if the gentlemen have met anybody from U-Control in Ukraine, but it's quite a well-known company in Ukraine, and because it keeps a lot of data on our Russian, Belarusian, and CIS friends, then they are the subject of quite a number of attacks and that, right? So that was one thing, and I went on and basically did that a bit, Eve, and then what I've done then since really is, I think the gents will know about the Brave One project, which is basically Ukraine's startup and accelerator community. So it's an incubator, if you like, and an accelerator, all in one, really. Some people managed to get funding, from the likes of seed funding from the likes of Google and Microsoft and people like that, to get them going.
So, Chris, can you tell me one thing? Do you think you can find some connections for John Fuggles for funding, and together to find some ideas how to help Ukraine with ambulances and maybe some tech ideas and connect to communities?
Well, I mean, one of the things is, actually, I saw something the other day, Eve, that U-Control is the 5th biggest contributor in Ukraine to tax in terms of tax payments, right? So one of the things that the companies are doing is they are basically making sure that they pay their taxes in Ukraine, if you like, right, to fund things that are going on. Now, I don't want to. I'm not trying to avoid your question, Eve. Right? You know, but most of the companies that I know, they are either paying taxes or they're giving a percentage of their profits, if you like, to Ukraine and things like that, right? But certainly, Eve, I can introduce John to some of the companies that I'm working with. That's
Wonderful.
Okay.
That's the answer which I was looking for, because my goal to connect as many amazing British people who can find more ambulances for my country. Done.
You got there in the end. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm so slow, John. Just to say, I'm absolutely honoured to be on the panel with you both as well. Just to say that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
the electrodes will be attached to you shortly.
Thank you so much,
folks. Ukraine is a democracy. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and a little bit female dictatorship. Just a little bit. All female in Ukraine, they're just finding solutions. So guys, help each other to find more money. And I will show again the little link for how you can donate Ukraine. That's really, really important, because I think that these guys do amazing job helping Ukraine. And I know that if you know somebody who don't know how to donate their money, all of their money in Britain to Ukraine, now you know these wonderful people. So that's a solution. Connect with me, connect with them. The link is just in the description. You can scan the QR code, because this is a good thing. You don't do anything wrong. You just help people who need help. It's a medical aid. You just help to save some lives. And that's really important. And as John said previously, Ukraine will be the most mined country in the world. And we're going to continue this conversation, because I filmed a lot of content from these gentlemen. So there will be interview with John Sweeney specifically about his book, which you absolutely need to have and purchase, which is called Killer in a Kremlin. It's available on Amazon. We will add the link below as well. So you definitely need to help Ukraine somehow. That is good karma for you. This will work for you in the future. And in the future, you will be able to say to your kids, I did something when that guys needed help. Thank you so much for your participation, people. You are just amazing gentlemen. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you in person.
Thank you, Eve. Thank you for having us, and wonderful film. So thank you very, very much for making it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.